Imagine waking tomorrow to a world where the largest and most powerful landmass in Eurasia is no longer the same, where East and West trade the mantle of power, territory shifting like tectonic plates beneath our feet. What if Russia and China swapped places a beat? The camera fades in on the vast Siberian tundra, then on the sprawling Chinese metropolises. Two nations, two systems, a dramatic rearrangement. The journey begins. What if Russia and China literally swapped geographical positions, resources, and influence? Not metaphorically, not in policy alone, but physically, their territories and their global roles exchanged. Russia becomes the Middle Kingdom of Asia. China assumes the massive expanse of Eurasia, stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Pacific. A shift so profound it rewrites history, economy, and geopolitics. We begin by asking, what does each country carry? Its strengths, its resources, its constraints. And then we plunge into the scenario. What happens when their roles reverse? First, Russia, a land of incalculable size, 17 million square kilometers, a rich tapestry of forests, tundra, mineral wealth, vast reserves of oil, gas, uranium, timber, a geography shaped by severe climate, a population slenderly distributed across great distances, a historic legacy of empire, revolution, Cold War. When we think of Russia, we think of massive territory, strategic depth, raw natural power. Now China, a population exceeding 1.4 billion, a rapidly modernizing economy, dense cities, high-speed rail, global trade networks, manufacturing might, a culture stretching back millennia, ambitions of global influence, economic interdependence, a geography varied, deserts, mountains, fertile plains, seas. While China has resources, it also has constraints, energy hunger, trade dependencies, environmental stress, demographic aging. In the real world, the context is asymmetric. Russia commands territory and resources. China commands population and industrial capacity. Both wield influence, but in different registers. The real-world historical arc. Russia rose as a continental power, asserting control from Europe to the Pacific. China rose through internal reform, opening to the world and leveraging its human capital to dominate manufacturing and trade. The geographic and demographic facts shape those outcomes. Without them, the story changes. Now imagine a world where Russia occupies the land currently held by China, and the reverse. China now spans Siberia, the Urals, the Arctic littoral. Russia controls the Yangtze Basin, the Gobi, the South China Sea. The radicality of this swap is staggering. Two questions: what changes instantly, and what unfolds over years and decades? Let us explore the element of change. Territory plus resource plus demographic base plus infrastructure plus global position. When China moves to occupy Russia's landmass, its population density now shrinks. The sprawling northern latitudes, the long winters, the logistical challenge of the Far East. The Arctic, new sea routes open, permafrost thaws, mineral wealth emerges. Now China is rich in land and resources, but constrained by the climate and the legacy of Russia's infrastructure, or lack of it. The scale of development required is immense. The languages, the cities, the transportation grid all demand transformation. China now wields enormous raw potential, but the immediate burden is transformation, importing pipelines, opening ports, building rail across frozen terrain, integrating vast and sparsely populated regions. Conversely, Russia and China's place now oversees the world's most populous landmass, the industrial heart of Asia, the coastline of the South China Sea. Russia inherits high-speed rail networks, mega cities, deep-water ports, a sophisticated export-oriented economy, but also inherits resource dependencies, environmental pollution, a massive rural workforce, a shifting demographic. Historically, Russia developed centralized state institutions accustomed to wide-open spaces. Suddenly, it must govern very dense spaces with high social complexity. The consequences. Imagine Chinese cities scattered across Siberia. Winter temperatures falling to 40 degrees, permafrost ground collapsing, infrastructure cracking, resource extraction booms, but at what cost? Indigenous communities displaced, ecosystems disrupted. China's manufacturing model may shift. Cheap labor less available in sparse regions, transport costs soar. China now must rely on resource exports rather than labor-intensive manufacturing. Its global supply chains must adjust. Meanwhile, Russia now sits at the heart of trade flows. Every container ship passing through Southeast Asia ports is under its oversight. It becomes the gateway from the Pacific to Central Asia, and through Russia's new territory into Europe. Russia's power amplifies. It controls choke points, Balaka-like straits, major shipping lanes, parliaments of commerce. Its cities swell with migrants, factories hum, Russian investment flows, foreign capitals flock. This Russia becomes the global economic center. Already aggressive politically, its ambitions now expand not just Europe, but Asia's industrial complex. In the real historical context, empires form along trade and resource routes, not just brute force. The Roman Empire, the Ottoman, the British leveraged geography. Russia's expansion across Siberia gave it resources but also logistical challenges. China's recent economic rise exploited human capital, external trade, export-oriented manufacturing. The interplay of terrain, demography, and institutions matters. This swap flips the foundations of those trajectories. So now follow the cause and effect. Day 1, the immediate shock. Borders redraw. Global markets halt. Investors freeze. Trade routes reroute. Countries rush to assess treaties, defense alliances. China wakes to govern Siberia overnight. Its leaders face the Arctic Council, permafrost, a population used to mild climates. Short-term, chaos. Infrastructure breaks. Old pipes burst. Rail links sever. Logistics collapse. Reconstruction demands trillions of dollars. Within weeks, food supply chains hit. China's traditional bread baskets remain in place. No, they're under Russia now. China must rely on northern tundra for agriculture or import. Russia occupies China's fertile plains and megacities but must manage water scarcity, smog, infrastructural inadequacy for dense populations. Russian governance style, centralized, state-controlled, faces the demands of high-tech industry and urban complexities. Within months, global energy markets explode. Siberian oil fields under China produce pipelines reverse direction. Russia's former resources now pour towards Asia. China leverages them but finds costs high and ecology damaged. In the meantime, Russia's new coastline on the South China Sea gives it naval access to the Pacific. Fleets expand. ASEAN states react. The US responds. NATO repositions. Alliances shift. Within years, the demographic and economic impacts deepen. China's population, used to coastal manufacturing clusters, is dispersed across a vast northern land. Urbanization slows. Cost of doing business rises. The world's factory relocates or stutters. Global GDP falls. Russia's high-density territories boom. Russian cities absorb migrants from South Asia and Africa. Russia becomes magnet for labor and capital. Its influence intensifies within a decade. The environmental consequences. Permafrost meltdown accelerates. Massive amounts of methane release. China-Russia swapped landmass triggers a climate event. Meanwhile, in temperate China-Russia territories, desertification, water stress, smog become acute. The world's carbon budget destabilizes. There's a feedback loop. Nations coping with resources, refugees, climate migration. In 2 decades, the balance of power realigns. China, as a resource-rich, low-density northern behemoth, becomes less competitive globally. Not in manufacturing, not in innovation. Russia, governing the industrialized Southeast region, becomes the world's economic heart. Its soft power surges. Cultural exports, financial hubs, tech labs flourish. Europe looks to Russia. Asia pivots under Russia's leadership. China fades into a raw materials supplier. What about the military? Russia, inheriting the South China Sea coastline, builds shipping hubs, controls island chains, commands maritime trade. It becomes a dominant naval power, projecting into the Pacific. China, in its northern position, contends with Arctic sovereignty, naval bases, but lacks population densities to support global power projection easily. The military equation tilts. What about global alliances? Nations formerly dependent on China's manufacturing rethink. They seek new hubs. India, Southeast Asia, Africa become alternatives. Russia's new heartland becomes the center of commerce. Capital flows east to west reverse. Trade corridors redraw across Siberia. China builds rail, pipelines, ports. The old Silk Road becomes the new road under Russia's southern axis. The world map of commerce transforms. In scientific terms, the geography swap triggers unprecedented engineering demands. Cities in Siberia need heating, permafrost mitigation, infrastructure. China invests heavily, but unexpected costs drain resources. Meanwhile, Russia's southern zone deals with heat waves, water shortages, densification of cities. Historic scientific data about Siberian atmospheric circulation, permafrost stability, now becomes central. The natural context shifts, and we see how environment and human settlement are intimately linked.